My name is Veronica Wilson. I work for Idea Exchange. It's nice to have you all here. Lily has over 20 years of corporate experience in leadership, people, development, change, transformation, management, and continuous improvement in various environments, business, and industries. Lily is absolutely wonderful to work with, and it's been a joy to work with her. And I would love to pass that virtual mic to you, Lily. So if you want to pop on up. There we go. And I will disappear. So have fun, everybody. And Lily, it's all up to you now.
All right. Thank you so much, Veronica, for that introduction. And thank you, everybody, for joining this evening and for a panel discussion on mastering stress management. So as Veronica said, I am Lily Yan, founder and executive director of our Inner Sparks. Our company is a social enterprise. We provide products and services to enable individuals, businesses, and organizations to reach their fullest potentials in this ever-changing world that we're living in right now. Career and aspiration development, change leadership and emotional intelligence training and coaching are some of the things that we provide to individuals, as well as corporate clients that has individual development programs. And then we also help business and corporations with business operations improvement and transformation consulting. We also provide a lot of different products and services. You can feel free to go on our website to check more out. But a part of what we do is we dedicate a portion of all of our profit to support and fund social programs. And the effort is to really help empower and enable people in the community with affordable and accessible development opportunities, especially for women in need. And one of the example of these type of programs is the Ignite Our Inner Sparks program that we are running partnership with Idea Exchange with various professionals and coaches in our community. We partner with them to provide sessions and seminars on topics that are relevant to self-care, self-development, self-actualization to help everyone navigate through these tough times. So we usually send out surveys after every session. We will for this one as well. But the idea is to really look at what you have to say about the session, how well we were doing, and also what other future topic of focus that you'd like to see. So please take some time after the session, likely tomorrow, to submit your answer and feedback on the session. As expected in our previous surveys, we've heard that stress management is one of the most critical topics that you want to discuss and listen and learn further. So that is not surprising, so, as we're surrounded with stressors these days in our lives, at work, and even in our finances, right? So of course, in a year like this, we're also gifted with so many new stress that we've never had to worry about before. So of course, today, our Inner Sparks have invited experts to speak on stress management strategies. And we're looking at how we can utilize them. Well, we'll look at how we can even recognize them. What should we really be thinking about, and how can we pay attention to them? And then what do we do about them? What are the different strategies that we can apply to help us deal with these stress? I'm really glad so many of you have joined us today for this great event. So let's get started by meeting our panelists this evening. So first, I want to introduce Alicia House. She is a certified music therapist and qualifying registered psychotherapist and owner of Whole Tone Therapy. Alicia specializes in developmental music therapy services for children on the autism spectrum, as well as creative psychotherapy services for teens and young adults with complex mental health concerns. Alicia's goal is to foster creative, expressive, and safe spaces for individuals to process their experiences, heal, and flourish in their lives. Welcome, Alicia.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Next up, let's meet Laura Hughes. Hi, Laura. So Laura is an inner connection and self-care coach. Laura helps professionals in support-based roles navigate burnout and follow through with meaningful self-care. Through workshops, resources, and one-on-one coaching, Laura is passionate about guiding the helpers, supporters, and caregivers to find work-life balance, set boundaries, and connect with who they are outside of all they do for others. She creates realistic and actionable strategies to support her clients' needs alongside their incredible work supporting others. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks, Lily.
Finally, we have Carole Sandy. She is a couple and family therapist, career coach, and registered social worker, as well as the owner of CaroleConsults, Inc. Carole offers individual and family counseling, training, workshops, and courses to help heal from the pain, frustration, and discover new narratives of strength and hope. She works with a strength-based approach to build skills and enable her clients to navigate challenging circumstances, crisis in relationships, and life transitions. Welcome, Carole.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening for this very meaningful and important panel discussion on stress management. As we go through, we'll have a few questions for panelists to kind of each lead through answering the questions, and the panelists will then jump in, take turns to chime in with supporting or different views on these topics. And then we will try to also address as many questions as you have from the audience. As Veronica said, feel free at any time in the session to add your questions in the session's chat or Q&A boxes functions through Zoom, and we'll get to as many as we can. And if we can't, we can still take them in and then get some of the ladies to answer them as as the session ends. We can still try to get those answers for you, get back to you as well. Okay. All right. With that said, let's begin. Panelists, I'm sure in all your work and practices that you've been experiencing. You've seen others experience excessive stress, and probably safe to say the level of stress has really exponentially increased since 2020. Many of us understand that stress impacts our life and our health, but most of us probably don't recognize early signs of stress. If it's dealt with on a timely basis, it can actually help our overall health significantly. So based on your observation in your practice, what are some physiological and psychological signs that someone should be in the know when they're under stress? And what are the common or often overlooked signals that we should be aware of when we're stressed? Let's start with Alicia on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I'm seeing a lot from clients right now is just this general feeling of exhaustion, not feeling like they can ever catch up with what they're doing. And this also lack of motivation in general for anything they're doing in their lives. People who were extremely motivated before this pandemic are now having trouble just doing basic tasks in their lives. It feels like the weight of the world is on their shoulders a little bit. And so we're seeing that. A lot of people are experiencing kind of a loss in appetite or even an increase in appetite on the other end of things. And so just these symptoms are very overwhelming. And for a lot of people, they've never experienced these before and they're very new. And so they're kind of saying, what are these things? Why are they coming up? And how can I cope? That's sort of what I'm seeing right now, as well as chronic headaches and dizziness. That is coming up a lot for people right now. And so those are kind of the things that I'm seeing a lot in my practice.
Laura, what about you? Are you seeing similar type of things or?
Similar to what Alicia shared, yeah, a lot of those physical symptoms that are coming up, which can seem jarring to a lot of folks that I'm working with, because they all of a sudden, I'm having these headaches or my sleep is disturbed. Sleep and quality of sleep has been a common thing that folks have been sharing. And kind of a theme that's come up that many of you might resonate with is this desire for, I just have to figure it out. I just have to figure out how to navigate this. I just have to figure out how to do X, Y, Z. And there's this desire for certainty and control, because all of us are in a situation where we don't have that same control and we don't have that same certainty. And there isn't even that homeostasis, that normal feeling that we have in our bodies, that even the stress we dealt with before the pandemic, we might have known how that showed up in our body. And as Alicia shared, there's new things that are now coming up that we're going, whoa, 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 and almost blaming ourselves for those symptoms that are coming up. And that kind of self-blame and confusion of, I just have to fix this or figure it out, has been a common theme that I've seen with clients and folks I support.
Yeah. I have to say that control part, because I mean, we have that tendency, we want to be in full control, right? And when things are coming up and we don't know how to deal with it, it's like, well, what else can I do to control it better? Yeah, so that's interesting you brought that up. Carole, what about you? What are you seeing in your practice?
The funny thing that I'm seeing or noticing is that as I talk to more clinicians, I have to say, we're experiencing similar responses. We are having the stress the same way they're having the stress. And so for the first time, and that's kind of what I kind of tell people sometimes, I'm having a difficult time wondering what's happening next. What I'm starting to see is people are, they're a little bit restless. They're upset, they're irritable, and they're seeing that amongst their friends, their family. They want to separate, you know, we see a little bit of low mood. And I've also found people are just kind of like, their tummies, they're finding themselves having a hard time just in the morning times, maybe just, okay, I know what I have to do next, I know what, and so they're trying to organize their schedule all in one, and that they're finding that even physically they're feeling a lot of tense pressure on their bodies. That has been there maybe before, but again, they're just finding it, that it's hard to separate from what they would normally be able to do in the past, work and home and everything else.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it's accumulative, right? So we had this stress before, and that's happening before. And now on top of that, with 2020 and COVID and whatever else that is also happening, that's stressing us, that's actually happening right now in the moment. It's actually on top of what we've already felt. And so it worsens the situation. And I know in the business world, I've talked to some people and they talk about lack of concentration, unable to really focus. And some of the things come up with, you know, inability to make decisions sometimes, as well as making actually analysis that they normally do really, they think it's simple. Normally they do it often, but they're feeling that they're challenged with it. So it's really, you know, somewhat part of the critical thinking are started to slow down a little bit. That is seen as well in the business and corporations as well. So quite interesting. So lots of things. I mean, we make it sound so daunting. There's so much going on, and there's so many symptoms people are feeling. Actually, in terms of the next one is, you know, we make it sound sometimes easy because we tell people, okay, well, like you guys said, you know, we want to apply some control. Let's do something, but it's not always that easy, right? So let's talk about these signs, as in, how do we put that into practice? When we recognize a sign like this, how do we then interpret that and start to manage it, or at least be aware of it? So, you know, in essence, why is stress so difficult to manage in the first place, and what's prohibiting us from recognizing it? How do we go ahead and recognize that so then we can take actions? Let's start with Laura on that one.
I think one of the first things that a lot of us can resonate with, and again, as practitioners and as folks who are receiving support, all of us who are navigating stress right now, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that a lot of us haven't been modeled how to move through our emotions. Yes. We're carrying shame around them. You know, the emotion comes up of stress, of overwhelm, of anger, of sadness. And we might immediately go to self-judgment. We might go to pushing the emotion down, avoidance, we're going to go and do something else. Or we're just sitting with that really tough emotion, but not really listening to it. So what I mean by that is when we have an emotion come through our body, when we're feeling stressed, a lot of us don't stop to say, ooh, I'm feeling really stressed right now. We tend to overwork, just keep going, power through. Or on the other end of the spectrum, we go to the apathy, nothing matters, how do I even get through this? And we can kind of see ourselves within that spectrum. In a given day, it can totally change. I think the first thing of learning how to manage the stress is to first see it as that symptom, that feeling of stress is coming to us as information. It's telling us, yeah, I'm feeling stressed right now. And let's first just validate everything that's going on. One thing that I find really helpful is when I'm feeling stressed to give myself the moment just to stop, literally slow my body down, right? If I'm in the middle of sending the email and doing this and answering the phone, take a moment. Yeah, I'm feeling stressed right now. Just name it. A lot of us move past the naming it and into all the coping strategies or into just avoiding it. And we'll get into some of how that can look as well. But I think starting to first name it, I'm feeling stressed right now. Validate for yourself that it is normal to feel stressed. Not only pre-pandemic, it's always normal to have a stress response. And there's so much that's on each of our shoulders right now. And then to start to meet that emotion, not with judgment, but as, okay, if I'm feeling stressed, what can I do to support myself? What do I need right now? So I see those as kind of the beginning steps to starting to manage it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Carole, what about you?
I often encourage people to really just pay attention to their triggers. You know, we've been hearing this word over and over again, but again, you know, as Laura was saying, it tells us information. Are there specific people? Are there particular times? Where do you recognize it in your body? So as we read the information, we respect it. We respect that this information is telling you something and that you can make the steps to take care of yourself. And the idea sometimes with stress is that we think it's a representation, a negative representation of us, when in reality, we all have stress in our lives. It's good, it's telling us something. Just be aware of the things that are compounding that stress, so that you can, as much as you can, move certain things to the side. Know that maybe certain times of the day you can work better versus others. And just being aware that it's part of you. It is not who you are. It is part of who you are. You are not a stressful person. You know, sometimes we put language around things and like that. I'm just always stressed. Be mindful of the words that you're using around stress as well. And just know that, yeah, in this moment, you're feeling stress. That doesn't mean you are that, but that you can push through that and you're going to make it to the other end. But in the moment, I know that it can be overwhelming. So I respect that too.
I really like both of what you just said, you know, labeling ourselves or being inner critiques of ourselves. And that really adds on top, right? Because then you're stressed about who you are and who you are labeling yourself to be. Yeah. Alicia?
Yeah, I really like what both of you guys said. And I would add to that as well, that I think as a society, we are kind of taught to kind of live in survival mode, you know, work to live to work. And we are so disconnected from our minds and bodies a lot of the time. And so we can go a whole week, like just living in survival mode and not even acknowledging for a second how we feel, what we need, and how we need to respond to those feelings. And so, you know, I always encourage my clients, like, take 5 minutes every morning and just say, you know, I'm going to be at peace with myself for 5 minutes before I begin this day. And I'm going to ask myself, what do I need and what are the tools that I need to put in place in order to live a really good day with all these tools in my control? So I think oftentimes, you know, there's lots of mental health care practitioners that are encouraging mindfulness, but actually implementing that as a society is, I think, what we need to do for that next step of acknowledgement, of creating that mind and body connection. And I think once we experience that awareness, and not only the awareness, but the next step of like integration, we can see a drastic improvement in our stress levels overall and the way that we conduct our lives as a whole.
Well said. One of the things I personally have adopted throughout this, I guess in 2020, but even before when I started doing my business, is journaling. And I found that's really been helpful in identifying what I actually feel physically, mentally, emotionally. I really do like what you said, you know, spend that 5 minutes a day and reflect. Like you could do it in the morning for certain aspects, but I think at the end of the day to reflect, how are you feeling today? Like, you know, are you, like you said, are you doing too much? Are you surviving? You know, what are you trying to do throughout the day? But then look at it from your own personal perspective rather than looking at what goals have you achieved or what, you know, what are the things you've done, but rather to look at within, how are you feeling? how's Lily feeling today? And very often, so to my surprise, I actually write down, I'm exhausted. Lily needs to back off. and that happens. And we need to acknowledge that sometimes that we may be our worst enemies in our stress induction, right? Because we induce a lot of the stress ourselves. So having a journal, having those self-reflection, a moment of self-reflection is good to really help manage our stress. So sometimes I know it's really, a lack of knowledge or the know-how of the self-awareness, but also it's just challenging ourselves to really consistently practice it. Because I know journaling, for example, I started for a while and then I stopped. And there was a period of time I just didn't do it. But then when I look back, I go, those months I did journaling, I actually felt a lot better. And so very often, like, these stress has momentum, right? Emotion has momentum, and you kind of let that momentum take its shape, and it feels like that you can even see it or feel it, that like a snowball rolling down the hill, and it's gathering with snow as the momentum rolls, right? But you just don't know how to stop it. So let's talk about it now. How do we then, what skills we need to discover in terms of self-awareness, and then in terms of stress management, so that we can practice them more often. Maybe Carole, would you like to start this one? What strategies can you share with our audience for stress management that's worked in your practice, and how has it worked for the people, your clients?
I think I really like what you're sharing, Lily, in terms of just the journaling piece. What journaling can help us to really capture is, are we happy? Are we wearing a mask? Are we doing too much? On all those pieces, this is how people, and why I guess I would say I'm a little biased, but I love talk therapy, because it allows us to, when we are doing therapy, to say the things that maybe, I didn't even know I was feeling that or experiencing that. And journaling is another beautiful way of doing that, hey, my plate is too full, and I may have to reach out. And so oftentimes I encourage people, if you're aware of how you've done things in the past and it's worked, let's bring some of those tools in. Let's start there, right? Let's see what's worked, and then let's add a little bit more into the toolbox. How do we develop hope? What does hope look like for you? How do we start to sort of recognize that there's so much resilience in all of us? What I sometimes encourage people to think about is that when we think from a growth mindset, we have more to work with. When we start thinking very limited, but I don't want to ask my sister because X, Y, and Z, that limits our thought process. And so I'm like, okay, that's possible. You could be, putting someone, your sister, or you may have to ask. Let's say it does happen. Let's look at that. What are other possibilities? So we can make a list of some things that we need to shift. And I think that allows us to be just wiser around, I never thought of this. I can try this as well. And so when we do like a list, a situated time of just possibilities, I encourage my clients, hey, no hold bar. Just don't think of any, just see what we can kind of come up with. People become really courageous, and that we can just kind of offer hope. We can open the door to new things. And so I encourage them to do that alone, and I encourage them to do that in session, to not limit themselves and just see what they can do. The other piece is, a lot of the times we think we're bothering people, and I'm like, people will let you know if they're not able to, and then even offering them the importance of boundaries as well too. Maybe saying yes too often, or always being that person, and maybe not this week, and kind of practicing with them a little bit around how we can, say no and get some rest. Lastly, I think what you're saying, Alicia said earlier, that we're in a society where everyone's going. We've always been into that. Rest is so good. Rest gives us the opportunity to be able to think and offer helpful information. And so I know people are kind of like, I don't got time for that. 5 minutes, close your eyes at your desk for 5 minutes. 10 minutes, walk away from, and just kind of think, give yourself the rest that your body needs, and just listen to those small whispers. We know when we have to walk away. I know when I have to walk away, but we just want to do one more thing. That's the time when we need to walk away and do what we need to do. But those are some things we just kind of reflect upon and talk about as much as possible.
Really great suggestions. Thank you, Carole. I resonate with that, seeing possibilities and options a lot, because in the business world, we do, brainstorming. And one of the things we say is, don't limit yourself, and brainstorming, the whole point of brainstorming is anything goes, because who cares if it's possible or not? Just brainstorm right now, have the possibility there, open up and think about it in terms of, of the feasibility later. Don't worry about it now. Put it on the board, right? That's great. Thank you. I think Alicia is next.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would add to that too, that I think it's important for us as practitioners and clients to recognize our humanness. We don't have to be superheroes in the midst of this experience. All of us are navigating this at the same time, and it's all something that we've never navigated before. So practitioners coming into the therapy space saying, I've never navigated this before. We're in this together. Let's figure out these strategies together. And let's acknowledge that we might both be coming in here with our human feelings, our human emotions, our human stress. And it's okay. It's okay to represent yourself as a human, whether you're a client or a practitioner. So that's one thing I would add. And in addition, I'm a big advocate for creative coping strategies because I'm a music therapist. So I think, engaging with the arts and music is such a key component to existing and thriving. And I'm such a big advocate for that, because music is one of the only activities that we can do in our human experience that engages so many areas of the brain at once. So whether it's creating a playlist for mindfulness, whether it's creating a playlist for a specific mood or emotion to kind of meet you where you are and then help you to regulate, whether it's drawing a picture or painting how you're feeling, just to kind of validate your experiences and then also in turn help you to cope and regulate. So I'm a big advocate for that. And then also kind of focusing on, I know this is kind of a cliche CBT thing, but focusing on what is in your control, because oftentimes we're so focused right now on everything that is completely out of our control. But I don't think we are consciously aware that when we wake up in the morning, we choose to get out of bed, we choose to make our breakfast, we choose to set ourselves up to have a great day. That is all in our control. And so there's so many things that we can name just in one day or even 1 hour of our experience that we can put back into our control and say, you know what, I'm going to radically accept that these things are out of my control right now, and also radically accept that I have the capacity to introduce all of these things into my experience that are going to be helpful and that are in my control to sustain me.
Well said. Well said. We discuss control, circle control in change management a lot too. Like what is actually within your control, right? And honestly, I think choice is really a gift. You can choose at any second to change how you look at something. Yeah. So you don't have to, like you said, it's not something that you need to ponder about too long. Well, I decide right now, this is my choice. I'm going to have a good day from this point forward. And it could be from this second forward. I'll have a good day. Yeah. Laura?
I was reflecting on the ideas of finding your micro moments to support yourself. And the example I use with clients is you could be in the middle of washing the dishes and you've got 2 kids screaming in the background. And I still want you to ask yourself, what do I need right now? And like Carole was saying, it's the hope, even if in that moment what you'd like is a vacation or a nice luxurious bath, that may not be the possibility in that exact moment, but starting to kind of guide yourself with those questions, the same way that I know everyone listening has that capacity to hold space for others. All of us who are navigating stress tend to be people who give a lot outwards. And so we have that giving nature, we have the capacity and the skill set to support others, whether it's someone through work, whether it's your family member or a friend, community member. So it's starting to put that into practice for ourselves. So I use the example of if right now anyone who's listening is feeling as if, okay, but what if I don't have that time in the evening, or I'm just stretched so thin, or I'm working in a hospital and I've got all these things going on and navigating COVID. Think about your micro moments of how often when we're doing the dishes, Is our mind just completely blank, or maybe even numbing or disassociating, or we're not fully present? Can we make that choice, Lily, like you're saying, to come back to that present moment and have almost an anchoring statement or an anchoring question? And the one I like to guide people in is, what do I need right now? I probably ask myself that 17 times a day. What do I need right now? And the answer might be a glass of water. The answer sometimes is something really simple. And sometimes it's, oh my God, I need someone to just take these kids and let me do this. And that's where you can start doing some of that boundary setting that we've talked about around expressing to your partner or your support network. Hey, I need my Friday night. I've got to fill my cup. Are you able to take the kids so that I can have this time for myself? But for you to get there and set the boundary, you first have to realize what it is that you need. So that what do I need right now can be a really nice anchoring right now thing you can start doing even this evening after this workshop. What do I need right now? And listen to that nudge, that, I forget Carole or Alicia who had said this, like that whisper, like listen to that. You've got this beautiful intuition and wisdom. All of you carry that within. It's starting to trust yourself and say, oh yeah, I am really run down and stressed. I could really use 5 minutes of just music in, headphones on, just taking that moment. So trust that voice that comes from within to tell you what you need.
Oh, that's so good. And I love how you're saying it's just really reflecting within, right? Like being present. And that's so important to do. Sometimes I also apply something, it's seemingly very silly, but I would just smile out of nowhere. And if I'm not feeling well, I'm not even into the moment, I all of a sudden recognize that I'm not doing so well in this moment. And I just smile. Because you have your body and your mind have this neural connection, right? So as soon as your action is taken, your body is fooled into thinking, oh my God, Lily is so happy. Let's make some more happy chemicals. And it actually does, and it makes you feel better. And I've taught this to my daughter, and she's actually said to me recently, Mom, I've used it and it works. And it made me feel better. So it sounds silly at times, but actually your brain does know how to, adjust in the moment. So even something that's that simple, I think it's very similar to what Laura's talking about. It's an anchoring moment. I recognize something, but instead of I ask a question, but I actually take I take an action instead. So people can actually figure out what works for them, what anchoring moment, anchoring thing or action or thought might work for them. But for me, actually, I think when you said anchoring, I was like, oh yeah, I do that all the time. And the other thing I really resonated with you is about achieving that sense of support with others in your community, whether it's in your family or in your community. And I think Carole mentioned earlier, maybe your sister-in-law, maybe your, somebody could actually help and step in. But it's really also making sure that you are staying connected with these people and that you are communicating your needs to them. And I like what Laura said. It might be talking to your partner and really communicating, having really good communication around what actually works for this unit, right? And really, that takes some, courage at times, and doesn't really always work at times. But then there's also, like I was saying, there's a bigger system. I always talk about this. And, you have to think about everybody around you, the people that a network of support, right? So you think about it, people even on our social media, and I've said that on my podcast too. It's like, I actually felt that they were support to me, even though I have no idea who they are personally. Never met them in person. It really didn't matter. They had like energy that I needed in that moment. And it filled me, it filled my cup. So really seek out for those like-minded people, seek out for, support for yourself, and, helps so much. I'm going to remind everyone to start putting in questions in the chat or question Q&A. I've not seen any come in yet, but we do have a few questions to go through, so it's okay. And my next question, and this one, we may not have to go through like one each person. So if anyone has a strong, strong opinion or a suggestion, please chime in on that. So as the holidays coming, with this end of insane year of 2020, our holiday season's coming, and we know with holiday there's a lot of extra stress. And also with I think we talked about uncertainty in the new year, in 2020 as well, right? So there's uncertainty, there's a lot of stress coming. What are your suggestions? Do you have any suggestions for people to feel, less stressed as more stress and uncertainty are piling on towards the end of the year? Anyone want to jump in with that one, more specific to kind of holiday seasons?
I think it's easy to numb our feelings around drinking or smoking, and meaning you're doing it more than you would normally do, right? And so just being mindful of that, if you're giving yourself the chance, because sometimes, as you indicated, it is stressful, and we may not be able to see all of our family members, but we might be seeing that family member that kind of upsets us or we don't get along with. So just recognize in many ways how you can be more mindful of, finding yourself sort of just using things to move yourself away, and know that in many ways stress transfers. So if you know as well, if there's people in your life or family members that they just seem very stressed and you just seem to pick it up, or you're just that kind of person, be mindful of those interactions, how often, how long, make some rules around how long you'll be at someone's place. These are things I suggest regular, and even now as we're dealing with COVID, just managing your own time and knowing, again, we were saying so beautifully, all of us, just the importance of choice. You have the choice, making sure you say it a couple of times to a couple of people. Sometimes that builds up the comfort that we need to leave at that particular time. I can't stay too long. I'm doing this, and just recognizing that it does take a lot out of us, but just putting it out there, sometimes that helps us to kind of be mindful of our own stuff that comes up oftentimes.
Anyone else? Okay. So I was going to say, I just posted this yesterday, and I think I had quite a bit of engagement on Facebook on this one. This holiday season will not be the same for a lot of people for different reasons, right? And just keep in mind, every moment you have is, you need to live to the fullest and appreciate to the fullest, because that's the only moment in time that you get to live that moment. So you have a choice. You can either be kind of down about it and that you don't get to see certain people because this year we're sort of isolated, or that, you feel that you are unable to do some of the things that you like to do and fulfill normally you would do in a Christmas or New Year season, bringing in the New Year out in the public with millions of people. Well, you can't do that this year. So, but remember, you can actually still appreciate what you have. Appreciate those moments with the people that you do have around you, and appreciate in a way. I appreciate the fact that we have Zoom. Look at us now. Had we not had Zoom with this pandemic, we'll be all stuck at home doing nothing. Right? So there's appreciate what you got. And every moment is important. So be present, be grateful, and be happy if you do that. So next question actually has a lot more to do with kids. I got this from someone that couldn't attend today. And they said that they would like to know, how do you detect stress from children? And how do we help them manage through it? Alicia, I wonder if you can address that one, because you work with children quite a bit.
Sure, yeah. Something that comes up a lot with kids, it comes out in their behaviors. So if they're angry, if they're upset, if they are acting out in violence, maybe hitting, punching, any sort of physical violence in that regard, a lot of the times, actually mostly all of the time, there is an underlying reason for that. So a lot of the time we want to target the behavior and say, no, don't do that, or stop doing that. But we need to take a moment to actually say, how are you feeling right now? I see that you're saying this, or I see that you're acting this way. Can you tell me about that? How are you feeling? I know things are hard right now. So, validating, like we were saying earlier, validating that feeling, validating that response, because ultimately these actions are a response to something deeper that's going on. And they're feeling the stress. kids are very receptive to feeling the stress from other people around them too. So if you are acting in a way that is demonstrating outwardly how stressed you are, which is valid, but your kids are often picking up on that. And so they are reacting based on your reaction and based on how they're feeling inwardly. So instead of, I always say to parents, instead of responding to the aggression or instead of responding to the behavior immediately, I often will say, take your kid by the hand and say, how are you feeling right now? Or what do you need from me? So that piece of validation instead of kind of leaning on what their external behavior is presenting as.
Yeah, it's like the cause and the symptom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and so you're addressing directly into the cause by asking them how they're feeling and the emotion. Yeah, and it really helps them to connect with their emotion when you do that, because I think a lot of times as adults we don't even know, like, why are we acting this way? What's wrong with me today? And that's because for so long we haven't really recognized that's actually because we're not feeling so well in a certain way, right? So it's great that that what you suggested is going to be actually educating our children to connect with their feelings. That's wonderful. I got a couple of questions coming in the audience. So Chris has indicated that, going back to the topic of triggers, sometimes our stress triggers are related to are relatively small, but then in your own mind can be amplifying that stress and make things worse. So what do you recommend on how we can catch ourselves in the moment of stress amplification? Laura, you want to talk about that? Because you mentioned stress triggers.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that I find really, really helpful that we can ask ourselves in the moment, and this comes from Brene Brown. If you haven't engaged in her work, highly recommend her books, and she's got podcasts. She's amazing. And she has a Netflix special as well called A Courage, I think it's called. But Chris, she talks about this question of what is the story I'm telling myself right now? And this is a really handy question. If you can identify that trigger's happening of, okay, stress is up here, but maybe it's relatively small, but I'm having this really big reaction. The emotions are high. Maybe you're future thinking of catastrophizing of, well, this might happen and this and this and this. What is the story I'm telling myself right now? So that's one way that you can catch it in the moment of, well, I'm telling myself that the family Christmas is gonna be awful, or the holiday is gonna do this, or must not go well because X, Y, Z. Okay, what evidence do I have of that? And our brains love evidence, right? And if we think everything's going to be awful, then our brain will look for evidence of that happening. So you can kind of catch yourself in the moment with, what is the story that's going on in my head? And then second, do I have evidence of that? Or am I basing this off of fear of maybe past events that don't have to do with this, or my own story that this result must be happening because, and then that's where you start to catch yourself of, well, I'm really stressed about this and I've got so much on my plate right now, so I'm assuming everything might happen this way. So I would recommend that starting point of, what's the story I'm telling myself, and then do I have evidence that story is really happening?
Great suggestion, Laura. Regarding that children's question, I think someone else also, Andrea online, also has added that Mommy and Me journals are also very helpful. So I'm reading that out to the attendees because I think only the panelists can see that right now. So thank you, Andrea, for that. We also have another question. And this one is on the Q&A. Says, are there any specific breathing exercises you would recommend for stress management? Any taker for that question? No one's jumping in. Okay, Alicia, you removed yourself from mute.
I was just going to suggest a guided progressive muscle relaxation activity. Those are super helpful. A lot of the time you can find ones that are guided with music on YouTube. There's like some pre-composed ones. Those are really, really fantastic because they're getting you to kind of intentionally tense your body and relax and breathe through the whole experience. So by the end, you know what it's like to feel super tense, and then you're kind of limp and you know what it's like to feel very relaxed. So I find those very grounding. I use them a lot with clients at the end of a session before they leave, just to kind of provide that really grounding stress release. So yeah, it's PMR for short, or progressive muscle relaxation, and there's sort of guided exercises that you can find on YouTube, or just kind of scripts of it as well on the internet.
And the scripts, are they, like, if you describe them, what are they telling you? Are they just like instructing you to kind of release stress from a certain part of your body? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so it'll take you through each kind of muscle group in your body, starting at your feet and working all the way up, and then your whole body, and then release. So it'll take you through the script of what to do first, when to breathe, and all of that. Yeah,
wonderful. Thank you for that, Alicia. Molly has asked, do you know of a good meditation app? Not medication. We don't want to go on those. Do you know of a good meditation app or something like that as well? Anyone?
Headspace is pretty good. I like Headspace, or Calm. That's another good one. You can also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Calm is a popular one. Disagree. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a great one. And then if you also, you can also kind of create, there's lots of kind of mindfulness playlists on like Apple Music or Spotify. You can kind of create your own mindfulness activity using those as well. Yeah.
I find just music in itself is, very therapeutic. Yes. Like you said, Alicia, earlier, just put a playlist together that helps with mindfulness. There's tons of music out on YouTube for kind of just the calming and Zen type of theme, but you type them in and they seem to help as well. I put them on when I'm actually even doing stressful things. If I'm trying to do bookkeeping, for example. That stresses me out. So I play calming music. Slow that down, the stress down. All right, somebody else. Andrea indicated that breathing as one has a universal breathing room. Sorry, do you mind explaining that a little bit more? I'm not too sure what you're referring to, Andrea. If you can just type it into the chat room, I can read it out to everybody else.
And just as Andrea's sharing there, one thing I would say too is reflect on what feels meditative to you. I know that a lot of clients sometimes have this idea of like, oh, I can't meditate, like meditation isn't for me. And then they may explore Headspace and Calm and find, oh, I actually do really like it. But for some folks that may not be what totally works. And Lily, as you're saying, it could be just be music. For me, it's having my headphones in because it's literally blocking out other stimulus. So that feels really meditative, even if it's not a quote unquote full meditation practice. So
you're not necessarily even listening to anything, you just have the headphones on.
Sometimes just the headphones in because it's blocking out other noise. Because I know for me, if I get stressed, my nervous system is high up and I'm like overly stimulated. And that's where for each of us, it'll be so unique about what will support your nervous system and your body. So kind of, I would say like have fun with it and explore, right? Explore Headspace and Calm. I think they have free trials. Yeah, they've got free trials. So explore to see, again, what works for you and what feels really good.
Okay.
I really like visualizations too, as well. I just love to go places in my mind, places that I love, things that kind of ground me. And, again, these are all things to try and may not be for you, but thinking of a place you'd like to be, thinking of a place that always brings you joy, helping yourself to kind of get to that place. All are great things to try before it gets too stressful. So I think all of these things, it's really hard to do it when you're already in a stressful state. So trying these things early so that you can say, yeah, that's not going to work. No, park that one. And then saying, yeah, that was all right. Let me try that out. Is also super, super important.
Yeah, I think it is really figuring out what works for you. Learning different skills, like applying some of the things we're talking about here, go on the internet and do more research on what's out there, what's available, and then, try it. And if it works for you, keep it in your program, right? These are the things that I actually do for my stress management and consistently practice it. I think we talked about, and you mentioned that, Carole, once you get into that momentum of stress, it's kind of hard to pull yourself back at that moment. It's like that full, all your horsepowers are going at the same time in that direction of stress or anger or whatever emotion that you're feeling at the moment. so it's really critical to really think about all those early signs that we talked about earlier. Like these are early signs, and you may not be noticing it, but it's actually accumulating over time. And then when you get to a certain point, you got that trigger and you go, right? So that momentum picked up if you don't deal with things in time. So like meditation, slowing down. I think you guys mentioned so many great things. Just, reflect and take that time for yourself. So I think we're actually close to the end of the actual. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I didn't catch. Somebody else, I'm going to put that as well on our somebody else has shared something with just the panelists. But actually, if you don't mind, one of the ladies on the panelists, as I close out, if you guys can pass that information to the attendees. So I just wanted to say, the last hour passed so quickly. This is an amazing discussion on a really tough topic on stress management. And I want to thank you, ladies, our expert panelists today, for your time and expertise. And thank you for sharing such critical information and very practical strategies to help everyone to manage stress. And I want to thank also the attendees. Hopefully this was an enjoyable session for you and you found the information shared useful. Our Inner Sparks is going to also host the next session in January for the Ignite Our Inner Sparks. And we're taking a break in December. As we said, we're going to start doing, stress management. December is holiday. Everybody's going to be on, holiday times anyway. So we're taking a break as well from these sessions. And the next topic in January will be around navigating through changes, times of change and uncertainty. We certainly have those right now. So as you, as we are likely experiencing in our life and work, sometimes changes are out of our controls. Most of the times, actually, even changes are out of our control. And whether you like it or not, you need to deal with them. So in January, we'll be helping you to build a better relationship with change and uncertainties. So by, I think, Veronica, correct me if I'm wrong, our goal is to have the session registration up earlier in January, about a couple of weeks before. The session will likely be January 26th. It's another Tuesday, if I'm wrong. Just going to double check because it's so far away. Yeah, it's January 26th. And so if you are interested, keep checking the idea exchange. Earlier in this January, we will put that registration link on. And then tomorrow we'll be sending out a survey for this session, today's session, and please take a moment to let us know how we're doing. It is important for us to understand so that we can continuously improve the quality and relevance of these sessions. We want to continue to bring topics that are addressing your needs right now and moving forward. So our Inner Sparks has all of the guests' information in our website and are all on our social media posts. And feel free to email as well, our innersparks@gmail.com, if you have more questions regarding future programs or products and services or social programs that we actually offer. And finally, I'd like to thank Veronica and our folks in Idea Exchange as well to host this event. And thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to do a double check before we go out. If everyone's got the information they need. Yes, we will share all the panelists' information as well to all the participants today. So thank you so much for your time and enjoy your holidays and see you in the new year.